So in this video, let's look a little more closely at how we can model details in Sketchup, not just simple massing forms. And to do that, I'm going to create part of a building. And then in a video that follows, I'm going to show how that part relates to a larger model. So I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle. I should also mention that the template I'm working in for this video is a feet and inches template, not a meters template. I'm going to click and drag a rectangle to an arbitrary size because as soon as I release this, I'm going to type in the real size that I want. I'm going to type in 12 feet, comma, 12 feet, enter. And that creates a 12-foot square. I'm going to use my push and pull to drag up 10 feet. Oops, let's make sure that was right. To drag up 10 feet. I guess I was so close I didn't notice the difference. And the idea here is I'm going to make a window unit for this wall. So in fact, I think I'm going to get rid of all of these shaded areas and lines. So I'm left with just a wall. In order to model with intention and accuracy, I need to begin to measure this unit. I know it's 12 feet by 10 feet high, but I don't yet know where any other subdivisions would sit. So let's say I want a window of a particular size. I need measurements to help me model that. And in SketchUp, I'm going to use this tape measure tool. This is really valuable in making measurements. If I want the sill of my window 3 feet above this bottom line, I'm going to take this tape measure, click on the bottom line, and as I move my cursor, you'll see that it's snapping in the direction of movement, and if I type in a number 3 feet, it is going to make that guideline exactly 3 feet. And I'm going to click from my vertical to, see, the midpoint. I'm getting a snap at the midpoint of that wall. And then I'm going to click, say, 2 feet in one direction, 2 feet in another direction, and maybe 6 feet up. So I have a window that's 4 feet by 6 feet with a sill that's 3 foot above the bottom of this plane. And all of that is described very accurately with these guidelines. I can now go into my line tool, and if I trace on those guidelines, I now have a piece of mass or face that I can extrude. So let's use push-pull. Push that in, but maybe only 8 inches. There we go. And I'm going to actually cut and paste that inner line. I'm going to get rid of these guidelines by selecting and deleting them. And this entire object here, I'm going to turn it into a component. I'm going to make this reusable. Let's say this was a module in a building and I had a repeatable window that fit within this module. If I model one of these and then repurpose it, that would be a very efficient way to make a building. So I'm going to right click and make a component. Let's call this window wall module. I am going to replace this selection with the component. When I click on it now, it feels a little different. It selects as one object. That is the component itself. If I double click a component, notice I get these shaded kind of bounding box that's offset a little bit. That allows me to get in here and edit if I want to make changes to this object. And if I click off of it again, I get back to a non-editable component. So double click to edit, click off to not edit. Let me actually double click in, and I'm going to use my tags shelf in SketchUp. I'm going to make a tag called 3D wall. I'm going to select all of the components in my component, all the faces in my component, and under entity info, I'm going to assign those to 3D wall. In fact, maybe I'll even give them a material. I'll open my Material tab and choose from this. See, I can look at what's in the model, but I can also look at colors. Give them all, say, this color. When I select a material, I get a paint bucket, and depending on what is selected, if I have more than one face selected, I've just applied that color to all of those selections. Great. Let's move on to making a window that fits this. I'm starting with a face, and I want to make a frame out of this, so I'm going to use the offset tool. I'm going to click and let's type in a number, maybe a 2-inch frame. And then I'm going to select this face. You know what? Select that face. I'm going to push pull it forward, maybe 4 inches. And then I'm going to select this face and draw a line from midpoint to midpoint. And offset this by 2 inches. Offset that by 2 inches. I'm going to make a tag. Let's call it 3D Win Frame. I'm going to assign all of this to 3D Win Frame and apply a material. I'm going to apply something a little garish just so we can see the distinction here. In fact, something like that. And then I think I'm going to take this and push it in 0.5, this and push it in 0.5. Select these two objects, and from my materials, I'm going to select glass and mirrors, translucent glass gray. There we go. So now we have a window. Because the window came from this face, I didn't need to measure it. I knew it was starting from a size that was going to fit that opening. Let's make this a component. Let's select it all, right-click, make component, call it window, and move that component. Let's see. I think I want that endpoint to be the back of the window. There we go. So now I have two components. I have my window, I have my wall. I could take both of these and using my move tool, I could move them. If I hold down my control key, I can move a duplicate of them. Because they are components, I can also find them in my components when I'm looking in my model. Here's my window. If I click and drag, here's my window wall module. So that's a sense of how we can use our tape measure, our push-pull, our offset, and some basic commands, including our materials, to begin to designate features in a SketchUp model. And if we think of our models strategically as being made of components and modular somehow, maybe we can be efficient and only model a few pieces in order to then arrive at a more complete model of our piece of architecture. In the next video, I'm going to show the model that inspired this and show some references to the historical images of that space and a model that is still in progress, but begins to show how this technique can be used to build out a more fully fleshed model.